a story where I was having a conversation with a mentor almost 3-4 years back. And I told my mentor that I want to be a mixed methods UX researcher. And my mentor asked me the very natural question that's great, but how do you plan on being a mixed methods researcher? And I had prepared for this answer. I was very excited and I told her, well, I already know qualitative research. I'm very comfortable handling the who, the how, whys. Now I have started looking at videos to pick up quantitative research. And once I pick that up, I'll know how to answer the how much, what next, how things scale. After that, it is only a matter of marrying quant with qual. And I'll be a holistic mixed methods researcher. Which makes sense, right? But she gave me a smile that I already see some of you in the front rows giving. I can paraphrase that smile as, oh, you sweet summer child, innocent kid. And she asked me to do an exercise with her. She said, Usri, close your left eye. Why don't you humor me and play along? Close that left eye and look at the stage. Do you see me? And do you see the person to your left without turning your head? You can shout out answers. Okay. Do you think you see this room in its full 3-dimensional glory? Yes, no, no? Is that a no? Or from the energizing session, yes. Okay, now we leave that eye and blink 3 times, okay? Blink, 2, and blink. And now we'll close that right eye. So can you still see the same thing? Do you still see me and the room in its 3 dimensions? Yeah? Okay, so you can leave that eye. And if you're confused, raise your hand. Because I was confused, but nobody else is? Okay, glad to see somebody else was also confused. Because for me, no matter which eye I had open or closed, I was seeing the exact same thing. The room was also in 3D, so what did my mentor want to tell me? I couldn't imagine. And my face must have had subtitles because my mentor read it and she told me that your qualitative brain and your quantitative brain, they are like your 2 eyes. You use them to perceive depth, not see 2 different things. And this statement has lived with me because as the years have passed, I keep revisiting this statement and I can find it in different levels of depth. But just to get you started, think of it like this, that one eye of ours sees the world in one perspective, and another eye sees the world with a very slightly altered perspective. The perception of depth doesn't actually happen in our eyes, but it's in our brains, which notices this tension, this difference that is there between the visions of the 2 eyes, and then builds the perception of the world and the depth around it. Just 1 second formal introduction. I'm Usri Ganguly, and after a fair share of trial and error, a lot of existential dread, I am finally at a place where I can call myself a mixed methods researcher. And just so I'm clear, I no longer believe that mixed methods is just a little bit of qual and then a little bit of quant, and you can mix it all together and you become mixed methods. So today, I will tell you one specific step that you can add to the Qual-Quant mix to become a holistic mixed methods researcher. Also, I'll tell you 3 half-truths where the Qual-Quant paradox can lead us astray, along with 3 questions you can ask to ensure that your insights have the depth. You don't have to settle for a 2-dimensional insight. But before we get into those how-tos also, I'll tell you a story that should hopefully help explain why we just spend the last 2 minutes blinking at each other. So about 2 years back, I was leading a fairly straightforward UX research task for a European telecom giant. What they wanted us to do was their in-store support representatives. So basically the people you go to when your SIM card isn't working or you want to change it, the bill isn't right. These people had said that they were not happy with the systems that they were internally using. And they had constantly kept rating it low. The team told us that we want to redesign the system to fix those scores. So a classic UX slam dunk. And because it was so straightforward, we thought that we'll start right with the numbers. The team had been collecting a combined score of ease and satisfaction on a 7-point Likert scale for about 2 years' time that they had shared with us. And the interesting thing was, no matter how we looked at the data, whether by regions, quarter on quarter, year on year, in all different ways, the median score always remained at a 3, consistently for the 2 years of time. So next, we moved on to heuristic evaluation to see where these issues might be stemming from. And it was a terrible platform. There was fragmentation everywhere, heavy cognitive load, constant need to switch context, and no system guidance whatsoever. There were also a number of visual inconsistencies, but if I had to summarize how using this platform felt like, it would be trying to navigate a spaceship using a TV remote. So it just wasn't good. And we thought, okay, great, we found our problem. We will solve for the information organization, we will add system guidance, and the scores will fix themselves. So of course, we had to validate our geniuses, and we moved into the qualitative phase of the study, where we thought we will sit with the in-store support representatives, we will ask them to conduct some tasks, think aloud exercises, and we will measure time on task, success, and we will also probe them on their various decisions. We thought that people will take too long to complete the task. They will get lost in the fragmented menus, they'll be confused. But these people did nothing like that. They flew through the task. And my hypothesis is, had we even tied blindfolds, they would still have succeeded on all the tasks to complete. So when we probed them further on this, they told us that yes, the system does not really guide us, but that is fine because we have learned it and we know exactly what to do. Whatever you do, please do not change anything. Just let it be. Only make it load faster. And that was how the Qual-Quant paradox had found us, because we looked at the numbers and the numbers said the system was unintuitive. Then we did the expert reviews. It confirmed our assumptions that why it might be unintuitive. And then the qualitative data came in, which said, please do not change anything. And we did not know what to do. It invalidated everything that we had learned up until that point. So essentially, I was looking at this problem with both my eyes open, and all we were seeing was a blur, and we didn't know what to do next. Now, a little more context, okay? So this was my first big girl job. So I had put this insurmountable amount of pressure on myself to walk it back into that playback and wow people with insights. Every 1-2 minutes, I will drop an insight, and people were like, oh my God, what an insight. But all I had to say was, yeah, the numbers hate the system. We think that the system can use a lot of help, but your people don't want anything to change. They just want faster computers, that's all. So that would be a great way to never get hired again. So I was panicking, and I was overthinking, spiraling, and when everything was doom and gloom, I went to the one place where pure and unfiltered genius is formed, the bathroom. And you know how people are bathroom singers? I have a hypothesis that researchers are bathroom thinkers. But like any modern day thinker, I'm also a doom scroller, so I scroll as well as think. And when I was doing this, I came across a video, which unfortunately I don't think will be playing, but I'll tell you what the video was all about. If you've not seen this before, it's a puzzle, and these shapes feel like they complete a triangle. But when you rearrange the shapes, they take something of this shape, and there is a gap, which means that the same figure can complete a triangle, but also may not complete a triangle and have a missing piece, which is not something that is feasible. But when I saw that video, that lit this bulb in my brain, and I realized that what I was thinking was these different pieces that I had, the qual, the quant, the expert reviews, they would all together complete a puzzle. But in the most sinister of ways, it was actually hiding a piece that I did not even know to look for. I thought the qual and the quant is the entire story, but that is my first half truth that was muddying my findings. That they only fit together neatly when we have identified and filled in the missing pieces. Now, in the telecom example, what we saw, saw was we had collected different data, but together they did not make any sense. But with this new aha moment, what we did was I conjured up the most important skill that I think a researcher can have in their arsenal, that is nagging. So I nagged and I begged the stakeholders to go to those get out those boardrooms, go to those stores, just to observe what is happening in the stores. Or they could also have given me a visa to Europe that they did not give me. So ultimately, Slack channels were formed to give me hour by hour feedback of what is happening in the store, and I'll tell you what happened. At about 10 a.m. when the day started, it apparently felt like a library. It was very peaceful. By 11:30, people had started to walk in. It was business as usual. The resolution during that time was extremely prompt. The people in the store were very skillful at resolving the problems. And someone started joking on the Slack channel that the score of 3 was definitely something to do with the manager. Someone else said it was a coffee machine that was broken. It had to be that. But by 12:15, the missing pieces had started to walk in. And forget being a library, it wasn't even a store any longer. It felt like a pressure cooker that was ready to combust at any moment. What had happened was, it was lunch hour and people from the nearby offices were walking in and they were flooding in. Suddenly there was a huge queue that was forming. People were shuffling their feet, going from counter to counter. There was a mother standing behind a 20-minute long queue, swaying from side to side, trying to calm down a crying toddler. There was somebody who was checking their watches and constantly telling that I have only 12 minutes left of my lunch break, I need to get back. And people were typing furiously. The sound of those keyboards were filling this and adding to the chaotic environment. And during those 2-ish hours of around the lunch window, the people were not just context switching, they were hanging on for dear life. I saw this one video of an in-store support representative. She was trying to calm down this micro crisis, continuously apologizing, pacifying the customer. Meanwhile, her eyes were flying between 6 different internal windows. She also had a paper pamphlet jammed under her elbow with the plan details printed out of this telecom company, because the system is slow to load those details. And the printers were jammed, people were shouting, babies were crying, and in that chaotic moment, the system did not just feel unintuitive, it was physically incapable of even doing any work to deal with this peak load human reality. And I realized that the quant was telling the truth, that the system in fact was unintuitive. But so was the qual. People did need the system to not change, because imagine needing to deal with a new system in the middle of this chaos. What we were missing was the context, which was something that would shape the entire experience for this organization. What they needed was not just a system redesign, but a complete rethinking of the in-store ecosystem. So everything from staffing and physical layout, how work gets done, the service rituals, and of course a system that could keep up with this contextual spikes in demand. And that takes me to the second half truth, where we think mixed methods. It is true that mixed methods brings together different disciplines and methodologies and data types. But one thing we should be careful about is we don't confuse it with triangulation. Now, I didn't realize it back then, but what I was trying to do was triangulate, basically gain reinforcement of my own findings across the different disciplines and methods that I was using. But mixed methods is actually used to catch the gaps and not find reinforcement. And the difference is extremely subtle, so I have an activity for that. Please shout your answers. There's no right or wrong answers. What do you think this is? Cat? Okay. Chat bubble, yeah, maybe. We'll take a zoomed out look, okay? What do you think this is? Cat? Yeah? We'll, we'll look at it from another perspective. Walking cat. But cat. Yeah? Okay. So I'm assuming that the room is agreeing because I don't hear a lot of voices, but we must be triangulated that this is a cat. But what I want to say is mixed methods is not the same as triangulation. So, what do you think this is? Sukav, tiger, and now? Well, there was a transition, but it does not work, but doesn't matter. Basically, what I wanted to show was a cat can become a lion, a leopard, a panther. It doesn't, but the one missing piece that we added were the details. And that is mixed methods. It's realizing that what you're seeing is not just one animal, and it's not about finding that one stable animal, but it is about accounting for the shadows and highlights that can actually help you understand that the animal changes based on the shadows and highlights that we haven't yet accounted for. So qualitative research gives us the lived experiences, while quantitative research gives you an understanding of how those experiences can scale. And it is very easy to think that when we bring them together, it's like putting foreground over background. It'll complete the full picture. But based on the telecom example, we saw that the background of the 3 score did not actually match with the foreground, where people said that we don't want anything to change. That is until we added in the shadows of the context of the ecosystem. Finally, the third half truth is we know that methods are neutral, which is correct, but we as researchers have a bias. We are not always objective. And that is because of the training that we've had, the experiences and our exposures. In the telecom example, when people said that I don't want anything to change, I wanted to believe them because that was my bias lying to me. But someone else in my place may have said that, hey, the numbers show that the system is a 3, and we have seen fragmentation in the expert review, so why just go not solve for it? People don't really know what they want. We just solve for it. Now, before you think one or the other is correct, I'd like you to just in your heart think, how would you address this question? That when qualitative and quantitative findings contradict, which one do you trust first? There are a few options here. Like there would be people who would trust the numbers because they show the patterns at scale. And there are people who would think that the stories are better to trust because they show the lived experiences, they're genuine, be empathetic. There are people who would immediately think that the study design must be wrong, the timing may be off, the sample can be noisy, there can be a bias. And then there are, of course, people who may just go with whatever insight gets shipped sooner because shipped insights are so much better than shared insights. But how many of us actually notice the contradictions? Because noticing those contradictions would help us step away from the method bias. And the way to do that is when you have a conflicting finding, instead of jumping to agree with one side and compress the other, first look at the finding and step away from the methodological anchor. Explain the quantitative findings without the numbers, the qualitative findings without the adjectives. And when you are able to do them, then try to see where do they agree, where do they disagree, and where the limits of each lies. And that will help you understand where the missing pieces are and where you need to probe further. And finally, one thing is hopefully clear, that mixed methods is not the same as multi-method work. And it is not even about the tools and the methods themselves. It is about the interpretation, especially when things contradict, when things are blurry. So these are 3 questions that I've seen to be effective when trying to understand how to solve for those paradoxes and contradictions. The first one is whose story is missing. In the telecom example, we saw the stories of the workflows, but not of the work days. When we were doing the study, neither the metrics, nor the user codes, nor the user workflows, the workflow charts, nothing showed those peak hour lunch rushes. But that made all the difference. So asking this question helps you find out the missing actors. The next part is, what does what context get lost among the metrics? Because a metric of 3 on 7 tells you nothing about the crying toddler or somebody who needs to catch a bus in 11, 12 minutes, somebody who is flipping between 6 different systems while apologizing on loop. So they help you understand the experiences and the habits that get compressed. And finally, always ask, where do the outliers hum? Because sometimes outliers and anomalous data can be beyond just that anomaly. It can help us understand that people don't behave like averages. We are more like, weather reports, and we can be sudden and patterned and chaotic. And sometimes the outliers help us get early warnings into the real things that can hold the entire experience hostage. And finally, before I close, I'd like to say that you can ask those questions and you can stay aware of those 3 half-truths. But mixed methods work ultimately boils down to the temperament, where you have to marry the qualitative curiosity, that is the ability to ask questions which are out of the box, like, what if this model is not wrong, but it is just completely blind to something that is culturally obvious? Or what if the outliers are the real story? And you have to marry that with the quantitative rigor of asking questions like, does this thing scale? Is this behavior stable or situational? When you are able to do that, the clarity that you get is deeper than each of these individual disciplines alone can give you. And that is the reason why you need not choose a side, but investigate further into those contradictions. Lastly, to end, I'd like to summarize that mixed methods research is not just a potpourri of methods. It's not, in fact, a combination of methods, but a negotiation between 2 very different temperaments, almost that helps you balance the contradictions, like playing chess from 2 different sides. And thank you, that's it for me.
Do we have any questions for her? We can take one quick question. Anyone? Okay. Last call. Okay. Initially, this talk got us twitching, but subsequently it got us thinking that have we actually been doing mixed methods right at all? So thank you for this talk, and I would now like to call Ripul Kumar to present Usri with a token of our appreciation.